Well,
what you not want to do.
well, not at all. However, with respect to all of those that have come, I think we should start, and as others come in, we'll just kind of pick them up and include them in the process. So, I'm kind of feeling like a police informant up here. I am so wired. But want to welcome all of you to our session this evening. So we're here to talk about the ideal candidate for the city manager. And we'll be embarking on a recruitment for your new city manager here very shortly. So thank you very much. This format is typically very informal, very unstructured, and highly participative. So we like to hear comments, input from folks, but there will not be a lot of structure around it. The key issue here is we want it to be participative, so we ask everyone to allow others as well to chime in and provide insights and inputs. In the way of introduction, if I may, first of all, my name is Paul Kimura. I'm with Avery Associates. We're the firm conducting the search. And Lindsay Kramer, thank you very much, Lindsay, has agreed to help out tonight and note the comments, which we'll collectively track, and they'll be very helpful in terms of our ability to not only identify and develop a profile, but also to have that in the way of background so that as we talk to potential candidates, hi, come on in, potential candidates, we can give them a sense and a flavor of what the Burbank community is all about. So very valuable input from all of you. I'm one of two principals in the firm. We're based in Los Gatos. We deal exclusively in the public sector. Our main area of concentration is executive search. So Bill Avery, who founded the firm in 1983, and myself, we do most of our work in California. About 90 to 95% of the work we do is in California. So we know the state very well. And we are based in Los Gatos, so just outside of San Jose. City manager has become a position we're seeing a lot more activity on nowadays. A lot of it has to do with the demographics, the age demographics. So many managers are leaving, retiring from the profession. And so we see a lot of openings and a lot of need for city managers. So it's a very competitive marketplace. It's also a very, very challenging and difficult job, as many of you already know. When you're talking about running a $200, $300 million enterprise and you're the CEO of a very complex and diverse business, it can be a real challenge. So the input you provide is going to be very helpful in terms of our ability to bring Burbank the kind of candidates that they are desirous of. If I may just talk a little bit about the process so you'll understand kind of how we do our work. This is one element, soliciting input from the community. We talk to the council members on a one-on-one basis. We talk to the staff members. And we try and collectively put together the commonalities and develop what we call a recruitment brochure or a job announcement. And that's what's used as a primary marketing tool. 4-color brochure. We get it out to other city managers and executives throughout the state and to a certain extent throughout the country. We'll also access names and people from our database. Of course, over the years, we've met and talked to and interacted with a number of public sector execs. So from these discussions, we'll sit down and start to identify folks that we've met in the past that maybe would be potentially good fits. Hi there, come on in. Good fits for the position. So we'll once we get the brochure developed, we'll start to search. That begins kind of the first component of the recruitment, which is really our outreach and trying to develop and get a candidate pulled together. After that outreach period closes, somewhere around 6 weeks out, we'll begin the initial vetting, evaluation, and discussion with the various candidates. And at several weeks following that, we'll meet with the City Council to develop, to provide our recommendations to them in terms of we feel these are the candidates that best meet the specifications that we developed on your behalf. And then we go into a second phase, which is really kind of the evaluation from the city perspective. And depending on the city, it can be as involved with the stakeholders or policymakers, or as the city so desires. But oftentimes, that takes the longest portion to bring that piece to fruition, because at the end of that, what we'd like to see is the top candidate identified, and then totally vetted background, and then negotiate terms and conditions. In some cases, managers, if it's a manager from another city, they may have an existing contract that says they have to give anywhere from 30 to 90-day notice. So after all is said and done, it will be probably mid to late summer before your new city manager shows up at City Hall. Okay? All right, so let's talk about tonight and what we'd like to have from all of you as far as this process. We're trying to identify the ideal qualities, the attributes, kind of the style that would work very effectively in Burbank. Okay, and we try and do this from a positive perspective of these are things that are really important to the city, and certainly why they would be important. That seems to work more effectively than what you don't want to see. Okay, so if I may just kind of point out right now, let's not have a discussion. This is not the forum to criticize or to criticize policy issues or operational issues. It really is more to identify the kinds of attributes, again, that we'd like to see in the new manager. And it's not a forum to advocate for issues, your favorite issues. Right now we're talking about, again, what the city, what you'd like to see in the city manager from a quality standpoint. All right. Typically, we go about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the level of input. Lindsay's going to be tracking and documenting the inputs, because we tend to find that there are some common themes that come out of this. So we'll go ahead and start to document and make sure it's consistent with really what you wanted to say. All right? And I will say that the input ultimately will be presented to the City Council. Okay? All right. Informal, participative, and unstructured. All right? So what I'll do is just invite you to jump in and let me know what you feel is going to be important to you, what you would like to see in your new city manager. And I guess we're going to need to pass the mic out because we're recording this. Okay? So anyone like to jump in first?
That guy over there, yeah.
This. Okay, Bob, here you go.
Are we live?
Yes.
I've participated in 20 years of budgets, and in each era, the organizational needs have been different. I came here because I wanted to express my view that there needs to be a match between the qualifications of the individual and the needs of the city. And as if the proper term I can use is maybe the threat assessment that I would see, and I consider the most serious threats to be financial. In that respect, I do not see the qualifications as being for someone who is a professional city manager, but rather I see the most necessary qualifications for somebody who has financial management, executive financial management experience. I would like to add that we had not an assessment, I guess it would be a forecast was done several years back that said the city needed to spend $220 million on infrastructure improvements over 20 years. And we have hardly made a dent in that, and the city's not getting any younger, and those infrastructure improvements require money, and they require a city manager, in my opinion, who knows how to handle that aspect of financial planning. To me, on time and on budget is no longer good enough. It's now ahead of time and under budget. And again, without trying to overstate this, I still believe that this is an era where the financial management aspect of city manager is going to be crucial to stemming the threats that we face as a city.
Thank you. Key issue, I think key message there that I heard was the financial knowledge, expertise, management, and then ensuring that the key priorities of the city are being met. So someone who's very much action-oriented and ahead of the curve in terms of getting some of the infrastructure worked out and the financial issues worked out. Anyone else? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, you are?
Mike Nolan.
Mike? Okay, Mike. Thanks for coming. Here you go.
Just for your purposes, I hope you can appreciate we are a charter city of 17 square miles. But as a charter city, we're unique in that we have our own police, our own fire, our own parks, recreation, etc. But we also own our own utility. Consequently, in this 17 square miles, there's a lot more to Burbank than just what you may see on a map. We at one time were an strong industrial base. We no longer. The media had come here a long time ago, but it wasn't acknowledged as much as the industrial. But along with Lockheed came the tool and dies, the machining. That's no longer here. Those blue-collar jobs are gone. So we're in a balancing act. The city manager that I envision, and I only go back to 1961, that's when I started following, and each city manager since then. What we need is basically what we have right now. They call him interim, but Ron Davis is the kind of manager that historically Burbank has thrived under. And there's several reasons for that. As the head of our, what used to be called public service, water and power, he has the responsibility for a significant number of the city's employees, a significant operation, 24-hour a day reliability, long-term and short-term contracts. And in looking at it that way, he also lives in Burbank. And rather than thinking this as an advocacy, I'm trying to show you, curiously enough, the attributes that happen to be in the interim man who's in the spot right now. We've been through hiring people from out of state that didn't know state laws. That was awkward for us historically. We've gone through hiring people who,
No, I was just going to ask, what I'd really like to understand then, what you're saying is we're a very complex city, a very, very complex operation with utilities, and so we need somebody who's able to manage and oversee the breadth and depth of those kinds of operations.
And in the past, we have had city managers with no experience in that area, but they felt they were adequate administrators. But here we are in Los Angeles County, surrounded and dominated in a lot of ways by the city of LA, but we're not Los Angeles. We're unique, we're Burbank. We also have a regional airport in Burbank, which can at different times generate a significant amount of problems. It also has significant demands. Consequently, the focus of the decision makers, the policy makers, the council, can be dominated at a certain point by the airport, whereas the day-to-day business of the city has to continue. Somebody has to have a strong hand on the rudder and bring to the attention of the policy and decision makers what's working or not working. I would have to concur with what Bob says about our concerns about infrastructure, and so that, again, you get the feel for Burbank. We are a basically built-out city, but in being a built-out city, There are various times over the years when phases of Burbank went in, such as the pipes, which can be, we have had some significant blowouts, for instance.
Okay, let's allow others maybe to participate, because what I'm hearing you
That's it.
say.
I waited till nobody else wanted to talk. I will wait and see what they say, and if they leave something out, I'd like to add it. By the
Okay.
way, so you know this, a lot of us didn't know about this meeting till last night.
Yeah, it,
You might want to ask when these people heard about this meeting.
Okay, well, you know, first of all,
You're too busy, that's fine.
no, I apologize the fact that we didn't get word out in advance, but I'm glad that you were able, those that did come were able to make it.
really quickly on that point, when did you, we just received notice through the city, like you said, last night. There was a notice that went out last week, I think it was Friday. But when did you receive notice that this meeting was going to take place?
Well, we,
Help understand the process.
okay, so it was a couple of weeks ago that we decided that we would select this date, and I believe information went out at that point. Okay.
But not to us.
Okay. Well, you know, I apologize, I'm sorry, but the point, what we're trying to do here is we're really trying to find some, if you will, ideal profile, candidate attributes. So I guess maybe one of the things I hear you saying is you'd like to see a lot more proactive communication going out to the community. Okay.
It's not anything to you or the process. but
Sure.
it's-
I'd like to see I'd like to make comments with the city manager. Thank you. I think the qualities that I would look for in a city manager are, I would want somebody with some experience as being a city manager, but somebody also with experience from private industry. Government is sometimes slow and lethargic. Business has to move faster and be nimble. Things change quickly in this world. I think we need somebody who doesn't have all the answers, will think outside the box. Somebody who, if we have a problem in Burbank, I don't think we have to hear how they handled it 15 years ago in another city. 15 years ago, things have changed since, and that's another city which is different than Burbank. So I think I'd like to see somebody who can think outside the box and somebody who values the opinions of other people, including the community and people who report to them.
Can I comment?
Sure.
We have a unique situation, as Mike was saying, that we have many complexities within the city, but what was just said does strike me that there is something called an enterprise fund. And one of the things that sort of bridges the gap between private enterprise and government is an executive who has been the manager of an enterprise fund who has to operate to some extent like he is in private enterprise, but he also is operating under the sphere of government. I think that's an effective attribute to find somebody that has that kind of experience, because it does cross over.
So am I hearing then that we're looking for someone who maybe has some private sector background in addition to local government experience, or strictly?
That's not what he said. He said enterprise fund. Governments have enterprise funds. We do in Burbank.
Yes,
Do you know what an enterprise fund is?
I do.
Oh, okay.
That's not private enterprise.
no, I understand, but there was.
I said private enterprise. I think one of the challenges in the city is generating revenue. And if somebody has never been in a for-profit situation, and I think because you need a mixture, that somebody who has tons of experience in government, that's fine. somebody who has tons of experience in private industry, that's fine. I'm saying I would like somebody who has both.
Nicholas?
Good point.
Good evening. So you'll have noticed that there's an emphasis on the uniqueness of this municipality. There may need to be some uniqueness to the ideal candidate in that one of the things that is principally unique about this city is that there are a lot of stakeholders who, while they have the right to express their opinions and while they have the right to disagree, often stymie the process because there's a lot of stakeholders who often act like they know better. And as a result, good initiatives, whether they be developmental, environmental, social, fiscal, are often pushed off the rails by small special interests, whether they be intelligent or otherwise, that have frustrated past city managers. The last 3 city managers I've had the pleasure of speaking to, and their departures have often been among many other reasons that need not be gone into, because that's not what we're looking for here, an inability to prove their worth through manifest action. And I think that the next city manager would be well served, first of all, by having full clarity on not just the opportunities their job offers here, but also the existing challenges and impending challenges, as this gentleman stated, the fiscal ones, but there are also infrastructural and social challenges in the city that exist that will prove a great obstacle to a city manager who is not fully aware going in that they exist. To that end, there's a certain, I guess you could, for want of a better word, naivete that might be required. A strength of character, a willingness to innovate, a willingness to push for things that they believe in as long as they have the metrics and the data to back it up, but a desire not to succumb to what many public servants sometimes succumb to, which is losing one's luster in the face of constant obstacles, because there will be a lot of obstacles. The character of this city is such that with all the amazing things that this city does represent, there are also less amazing things sociologically within the city that manifest themselves, and the city manager will always have to face those until they have more than proven their worth. There is an institutional resistance to change in this city, but change is desperately needed. Urbanization is manifesting. Rising costs are manifesting. The financial challenges this city is increasingly facing are not being adequately addressed. It's almost like somebody's waiting for some pot to fall from the sky, and that's not going to happen. So hard decisions are going to have to be made sooner rather than later. And the city manager who comes in is going to have to advocate for some of those decisions and not wait for permission, because that permission sometimes won't be forthcoming. So it needs a great strength of character and also a sense of naivete, believing that their vision and their innovation is for the better of the city, even if they face several people who say it's not.
Now, is that part of a leadership characteristic in terms of the...
Yes, in that they're going to have to reawaken the enthusiasm of staff, which is something that is desperately needed. And I hope I'm not being presumptuous here, but I have experienced a lot of incredibly talented staff who have lost their enthusiasm. Whether it be through multiple changes or whether it be through the infrastructure of a city council that changes every 4 years and a mayorship that is changes every year. I can't point to the reason, but there's a lot of very talented staff who are unfortunately reduced to a capacity of keeping their job rather than being able to do their job. The incoming city manager is going to have to reawaken the enthusiasm that those staff, I'm sure, inevitably brought when they first joined the city staff. They're going to have to somehow re-educate the city council to be partners in that leadership rather than a reactive body. They are going to become a proactive body. If the city council is not proactive and reawakened in its leadership, the city manager is going to face constant obstacles, as I mentioned earlier, in that they're going to want to manifest certain innovations, certain developments, and they're going to be meeting with a partner who's unwilling to make the decisions that are required.
Did we capture, Nicholas, in the last 4 bullets, did we capture the essence of? Okay, anything you would want to add to that?
Just the aspect of the partnership with the city council, not simply looking, the city manager shouldn't simply see themselves as a docile reporting to city council and acting only upon the directive, but rather as a partner. At this point in the city's history, I think the incoming city manager needs to see themselves maybe with a little more self-confidence than historically they should, simply because there are some decisions that have to be made that the city council needs to be challenged respectfully, but will need to be challenged, and so we need the type of character that's willing to do that. Perhaps, not so much independence. We don't want somebody who's going to come in and say, look,
Right.
there's a lot of people in the city who feel very, very strongly about the city's current character and may not be aware that their change needs to be manifest. It's inevitable. But the question is, are we going to control and manage that change and protect the character of the city, or are we going to be subject to that change because we simply don't want to see any change? The city manager needs to recognize change is inevitable and that they will help us manage it, understanding what the true core characteristics of the city are, so those are protected, and not other characteristics that must adapt.
Oh,
Not right now.
oh,
Not
okay.
right now. I've got
Okay.
some comments in a bit.
Mike?
I was cut off. No thanks, no confidence.
Okay. Ah, okay.
I just thought here. To some of the comments that were made, I do agree. I think the city manager has to have, be a strong leader, but also partner with the city council and understand the history and some of the background of the city. We are strongly influenced by the city of LA. We used to be a suburb, now we're surrounded by LA. So all of those influences from traffic and everything, development. So a strong leader, but also transparency in the city staff, transparency in what's going on. I think there, some of the points about city staff being reawakened, and we've got some very, very excellent city staff folks, but we need a strong leader.
Okay. So leadership of staff then, I guess, is another.
Can you roll it up? I know I'm late. I apologize. But I want to make sure that somebody who's smart, intelligent is up there. Did anybody say that?
No.
I would like to say I would like to see somebody who is intelligent and secure enough in themselves that they don't get trapped in the vortex of the craziness, but that they're respectful and kind, creative and open. And I'd also like to know what the people who worked for them think of them, not their management team, but the actual workers. I would like to know the kind of reputation they built among the rank and file of the people they managed.
Well, so what you're asking for is somebody who has the respect of staff throughout the organization.
Yeah, somebody who mentored, who treated them well, who set a good example.
Not only management, but staff.
Not the management. I don't want the management's perspective.
I was going to ask you, could
Well-
you describe,
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
you must have a mission. There must be, when you entered into an agreement with the city, I'm asking you, what is the goals and objectives that you have in this? What are you bringing to this in terms of what you're hoping to accomplish? Is this a city, national search that you're expecting to do? Are there any parameters that you have entered into that we should know about in this conversation?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but in terms of where we look for candidates, yes, we would look nationally for candidates. And with today's internet age, the way outreach is conducted and the way some of the advertisement is done, it does reach a national audience, okay? By and large, we find there is a preference for California experience. In some cases, councils would desire maybe a mix of private sector and public sector experience. So it really is a function of what we're hearing from the client. I mean, our desire is to find the best fit for this city. And part of how we do that is to understand the challenge of the position, the priorities of the council, priorities of the community. And that's not always an easy discussion because, as we've heard tonight already, there are a lot of different insights and thoughts that the community members have. So it's really trying to lock in on those that are most in common and focus on those.
Have you sat with council and had them express their similar to what we're talking about?
Bill Avery has, yes.
If I could just speak to your point, because I think it's a very important one. Historically, it might make sense, especially as you say in this internet age, to have a national search. And I would have maybe 3-4 years ago agreed that that would be the most efficient way of trying to find the most suitable candidate. But having hired many executives in the private sector, I've noted in the private sector, you can mold the culture in the private sector to fit the needs of the time and of the leader. The challenges and opportunities that are unique to this city will be invariably and guaranteed a great frustration to the incoming city manager. And the only way that they will prevail and the only way that they will manifest the success required for this city to not only survive but prosper is if they care so much about this city and this region that they're willing to stomach and survive that onslaught. And the only way they will, I believe, is because they have already a pre-existing investment. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to be from Burbank, or of California, but somehow there has to be something that they bring with them to the job that means that when they face those obstacles and challenges that I would presume are somewhat unique to the city, and you may discover this as you have extensive conversations with city council and staff, that they, already anticipate it, have already absorbed it in their consciousness, and are willing to pass through that because their vision and their commitment to the city are such that that's just part of the game for them, rather than, oh, I didn't expect this and I don't have to put up with it. Because there are city managers who come with great gravitas, great experience, great respect from their staff, but from a very different culture that they may not have had to weather the sorts of things they will have to weather. So I think it's crucial they come into the job with an understanding, commitment, passion for this city's history and future.
So, good, I think a couple key words, the passion and as well a knowledge of the city is going to be important, a knowledge of the background of really the character of Burbank. Okay.
I think it'd be important for somebody to want to stay here for a while, and this isn't going to end up as a paragraph on their resume, that it's not a revolving door in that office across the street, and I would like to see it somebody that intends to stay. I know we can't age discriminate, but if somebody is within a few years of retirement, I won't think it's the best move, the best person. I'm retired myself, but I think that if somebody would say, I plan on staying here 15, 20 years, I would like to hear that.
Okay.
I think the gentleman makes an excellent point, but I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think he makes a great point that somebody shouldn't be looking at this as a line item on their resume, but often, and especially in the unique circumstances I think the city is facing, we have an interim city manager right now that you've already heard several people, including myself, admire. And they might make a great permanent one. I don't know if they're interested in applying or whatever. But with the unique challenges we face, the strength of character that we've already spoken to in several of the bullet points previous might require somebody who will only be here 2 to 5 years. because they're going to have to bring with them the type of energy, enthusiasm, conviction, and maybe even dominant personality to manifest the types of changes required, and they will naturally upset some people, but they will have manifested the changes necessary to ensure that this city's culture and fiscal strength survives and prospers, and they may have to be the sacrificial lamb. There are executives who are willing to do that. There are city managers who are willing to be that, and they do it very well. If that's what you and the City Council, after socializing this job spec, discover is the most important thing, I myself as a citizen of the city would be willing to have somebody come in and say, I'm only willing to be here 2 to 5 years because I'm going to make a lot of disruption, but it's going to be positive disruption, it's going to be sensitive to the culture and the voices of the city, but it's going to be disruptive so that we can get back on track to success, and then another long-term one will come in. It has to be a possibility that will be considered. It's not the ideal maybe, but we have to be realistic at the same time, I think.
I just want to support something that was said earlier, and that is that the city is run by a very large and competent staff. And it does seem to me that we cannot underestimate the value that the city manager brings when it comes to growing that staff and making that staff feel like they are important and that they're significant and that there are opportunities for them to grow within the structure that exists, even though we are a relatively small city. So I think I just would like to lend my voice to that particular comment that was made earlier about how I think that staff and the growth of staff is a very important attribute of a city manager.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Mike?
Yeah.
I apologize for cutting you off.
You did your thing. That's fine. I understand. I have no appreciation for being treated that way, but nonetheless, I would like to share with you that this city doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. We've been through having what we called Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside, where we had one city manager named Bud Overham who handled redevelopment, and Steve Helby, his assistant, handled the day-to-day operation of the city. It didn't work very well. What we need is somebody, like going back in the old days, McCambridge Park is named after Jim McCambridge because he did exactly what I suggested that I doubt you knew. He ran the utility, and then the council selected him to run the city. The beauty of it is, sure, we want a good, confident city manager, but the policies are set by the city council, elected by us. And it's not every 4 years, it's every 2 years we have an election. And either 2 or 3 can either remain or be replaced or quit if they want. So what we're looking for now, I respectfully disagree with some expressions here. We're not looking for dynamics by the city manager. We're looking for competence. And as he develops a rapport with the staff, for instance, he can give confidence to the staff by harboring their recommendations. By the same token, if he finds that those recommendations are not acceptable to a majority of the council, many city managers in the past have said a simple thing: I can count. And with the 5 members of the city council, when you count up to 3, you're either doing well or you're doing poorly. Thank you.
Okay. When you talk about competence, Mike, when you mention competence from an administration standpoint, from a leadership, from a management, is that what we're talking about? Okay. Yes.
And on that point too, to see the big picture of all the departments, again, looking at the city from, not this department versus that department, and really seeing some of the issues, because the same issues keep coming up. But it seems like we're being more reactive. So again, a leader that's proactive, that does listen to council and understand where council's coming from, but provide that leadership too, to provide direction, seeing the big picture, seeing what all the departments are. So it's not these silos, this department wants to do this department does that, this department. No, they have to reunite all the departments.
Okay. Anything else?
One thing which is I'm hearing repeatedly about the city manager now, he will do this, now he will do that. I think it's important that as the search firm, you exercise a diverse outlook, and there are some very, very competent and capable female city managers out there, and I hope that sincerely you will be doing your due diligence to explore those areas.
Oh, and by the way, did you know we had a lady city manager?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about my foreign accent, of course.
Okay.
Yes, he did the other week. He's a bigot.
That's not what I said at all.
Okay.
We did have.
Okay, so time out. Let's.
What they have challenges, this is a challenge.
Okay, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's, I will share with you from a recruitment community perspective that Burbank is known and understood to be a very complex city with a lot of diverse opinions, a lot of assets, but also a very involved and engaged community. And when you have that, you have a lot of differences of opinions. And that's a real challenge that the manager needs to be able to address. So, clearly, I think it's not a mystery. I think it's understood that Burbank is, a top quality city, that it's a very challenging environment. And so candidates who've done their homework will recognize that. Okay, anything else? Excellent. Then with that, I will thank you all again for your participation and your attendance, okay? Thank you very much, appreciate it.